after Bridgman, it's like Connors, Thigala, Rasmus Højgaard, Thorbjorn Olesen, Wyndham Clark, Cootie, Mac Meisner, who Mac Meisner rated out number 1 in the model that I tried to run. And so I threw my computer in the garbage.
He projects really well for us quite often. And I'm with you. It's like, I don't totally trust it, but then I actually look at the data and say, okay, well, I suppose I should have known that the model wasn't making stuff up. And yeah, he does look like a better player than at least like how often he's contended, right? And because I think a lot of the time when we think about how good a player is, the thing that our mind goes to is how often have we seen this guy in contention on TV on a weekend, and he just hasn't been there that often. But then I also look at, our volatility numbers, and okay, he's a really low volatility guy. And so he consistently rates out for us as like, he's unlikely to win, but he has one of the better made cut projections in basically any field. And that's the case this week again.
At Mayo Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience Valspar Championship DraftKings picks full DFS breakdown. Alex Blickle from FTN Fantasy joining me on the line right now. Alex, did you know that if you hit the description of this video or podcast, you can get the link to my special Underdog group for filling out an NCAA bracket? It is free to join, and the winner gets $1,250. Second, $750. Third, $500. $2,500 for a free bracket. Is that something you may be interested in?
Yeah, I know that now. And so right after the show, I think that's where I'll be headed.
Yeah, you sent it out to the Discord as well, because I probably owe you some cash, because you swept me some basketball last night. I woke up with a ton of money in my Underdog account. Felt very good about that.
It's been a really good run in NBA. It's been a really good run in PGA too, as well, over on Underdog, and it's really helped me because my DFS lineups have not been that good, and every single week, the Sunday especially, Underdog picks come through. We did it again this past week. Just back 9 scores this week was the key. They had a bunch of guys priced at 35.5 strokes for the back 9. And I looked at it and said, hey, wait a minute. It's playing pretty tough. Let's take all these guys over. Just do 2 pick plays so we don't get penalized too much for the correlation. And 4 of the 5 guys hit. So it's been great. We've hit it 65% clip on the PGA pick so far this year.
Well, I'm in one Discord, and it's yours. And if you guys want to be in it too, hit the description. You can find Blickle's Discord down there. I found it interesting playing the back 9 at the Players for the Underdog plays, because 16 all of a sudden started playing really difficult. And if you don't have the gimme at 16, you're probably going to shoot over par, which is what we saw, which brings us to this week. They're probably going to have the snake pit coming down the stretch. Holes 16, 17, and 18, historically one of the toughest 3-hole stretches on tour. However, the past 2 years, it's getting kind of easier.
It has been easier. I wonder this year if it's going to get some teeth again, because it looks like we're going to get at least some gusty conditions for the first 2 days. And, we just saw how firm it was at Sawgrass, and we're getting sunshine and breeze pretty much all week leading into the Valspar. So hopefully this course is as difficult as we've seen it. Cause I think that was one of the things the last couple of years, like it just wasn't, the conditions just weren't as difficult as what we had seen some years prior, and I think we could get the really good ones this year. Yeah,
looking at the weather right now, I'm using the Tarpon Springs / Rolling Oaks tower on windfinder.com. Right now, like there's 20-mile-per-hour winds today as we're speaking, but it'll be like gusts up to 16. The wind doesn't actually look all that bad throughout the course of the week. It's the lead up to the week that looks bad.
Interesting. I looked this morning at windy.com and was looking at like sustained winds, basically 10 to 15, gusts 20 to 25 for the first 2 days, at least in the afternoons. It looked pretty symmetrical Thursday, Friday, so I don't think we're going to see much of a wave advantage, at least at this point. But, that plus a really firm golf course could mean high scores.
Well, if you use that link in the description to join the bracket and you're brand new, that will give you a deposit bonus of up to $1,000 at a 50% bonus. Plus, when you play your first $5 pick'em entry, you'll just get $50, a free $50. So there's ever a time to jump on, do that, fill out the bracket. Maybe you win over $1,000 for free. And then if you do end up depositing, you play a $5 entry, you get $50. You can use it on the snake pit and join Blickle's Discord and find out what are the plays to go for, higher or lower on those come Sunday. Maybe we'll have some other stuff in there as well. I want to talk about the Players just for a minute. It was our highest rated show of the year. Shout out Tambo for coming back. Obviously our worst picks week of the year.
Yeah, it wasn't great. The one thing I felt good about was talking through the wave strategies and how the field was definitely too confident in the early late stack. And and I ended up running three lineups. Two of them were late early. That was the side to go. Unfortunately, Shane Lowry ruined my weekend by not getting to the weekend, and so I wasn't able to take full advantage. But I did feel really good about that strategy and just talking through it. And then we added contest sims over at FTN, a new and improved version of our contest sims that now really handle wave advantages, wave scenarios like super, super well. And so I had a lot of fun playing with those and kind of fortunately it confirmed a lot of my prior intuition on just how to play those stacks and how important it is when you see a potential advantage to really go all in on that advantage and go 6-0.
Well, it's funny because I played 75 or 80 lineups. I stacked 20 one side, stacked 20 the other side. Unfortunately, I had a bit too much Rory in the alternate, the PM AM, the quote bad side. But I liked how we talked through it that I don't know how people landed on AM PM as just it was very clearly going to be the superior wave. When I started looking at the weather, I was like, this looks about even, honestly. Like, yeah, maybe on Friday afternoon if the winds had really stayed down. But when do you ever see the winds down in the afternoon in Florida?
Yeah, there was that. And then the other thing that I kept seeing was like, okay, if this storm's rolling in on Thursday afternoon, early Thursday afternoon, that means that the course is all of a sudden going to get some water and it might play more receptive for the next day and a half compared to that first waves play. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. And that's why there ended up being a 1.9 stroke advantage over the first 2 days for the PM AM wave. And so I was with you. I was a little bit confused as to why the field was so confident about the AM PM advantage. And I think they were looking at just like the strength of the wind. They weren't focused on direction of the wind, and certainly they weren't focused on the potential precipitation. There was definitely an advantage there. And basically, what I did was I like mapped out all the different scenarios of, okay, here's what happens if the storm does roll through. Here's what happens if it doesn't roll through, but the winds still come. All the possible different scenarios, and I had basically like there were two outcomes where early late had an advantage. There were two outcomes where late early had an advantage, but the late early advantages were going to be stronger than the early late advantages. So I actually saw very even, if not a slight nod to the late early, played that pretty heavily. And like I said, I feel like I deserved to get more out of it than I did, and I blame Shane Lowry.
Yeah, I blame Lucas Glover for costing me a bunch of money this week as he just went full meltdown over a 4-hole stretch on the front 9 on Friday. Yeah, I was feeling good. I was like, I need Pendrith to rally. You and I were talking about it. That I need Pendrith to rally here. And I think he eagled the second hole. I was like, oh, this is going great. I had a PM AM it was a Scotty lineup, which would have turned out to be fine if that ended up being the case had I got 6 of 6 through, and then Glover just went full implosion. And that was the end of me in the $200 single entry, which I think I still ended up cashing, but it just didn't quite get there because my low end picks ended up being pretty good. It's just I didn't have enough of the Cam Young. Well, I had no Ludwig. He was a full fade for me, but I had a lot of Cam Young and Fitz as a part of that as well. So I was like, okay, well, let's see if we can maneuver something here. Just didn't end up working out for me. This tournament, I think it was last year at this tournament that there was a huge wind advantage in I think the first day, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. And I think the final thing that I want to mention about the players, like, first of all, what an awesome leaderboard that was. And second of all, one of the things that we really saw come to fruition that we talked about on the show is TPC Sawgrass is such a phenomenal course in the way that it helps great players separate from good players separate from bad players. I saw some discourse on Twitter about how it's just a luck fest. That really could not be further from the truth. There is a lot of luck involved. There is a lot of variance involved because of all the water, but there are very few courses year in and year out that reward great play and punish poor play more than TPC Sawgrass. And I was really happy to see that come through because we talked about how, the course fit model, like almost every single skill set except distance, really was boosted in predictive value last week. And we definitely have a different story this week at the Valspar.
So a few notes before we get into the Valspar this time around. Keith Mitchell is not in the field. Bobby Mack is not in the field. And additionally, my main man, Shooter Shun Yelamaraju, decided, you know what, 5th place and $1 million at the Players is good enough for me. I'm going to take the week off. So he has WD'd from the field as well, just in case you were considering any of those guys. But maybe the biggest note that I stumbled across. Have you heard about Austin Smotherman this week, who's been bet down to 40-1 in the market, by the way?
No, tell me.
His wife is due to have a baby on Monday.
Interesting. So,
And as someone who went through this process, it might come early. And I don't know if that means he's leaving or staying, but I was going to be like all in on Smotherman, and then I was like, ooh, that kind of terrifies me.
yeah, if you remember, we had this conversation a lot last year when it came to Scotty, because at the Masters, Scotty was like, I don't care if I'm in contention, I'm going to go be there for the birth of my child. Smotherman isn't in the same financial position as Scotty, so if he's in contention, I don't know that he can turn down the opportunity to make $1 million in one weekend. I guess we'll see.
The Scotty thing, I think, got a bit overblown because his wife was due like 3 weeks after the Masters. Like, Smotherman's wife's due on Monday. So I'm just throwing that out there. It's not going to prevent me from using Smotherman on DK. It might prevent me from using Smotherman in like a single entry.
Yeah, that's a good approach. The other thing maybe you could do is you just play him in Showdown on Thursday and Friday, and then you leave him alone on the week-long slate.
Well, he is Mr. First Round Leader at this point, so you probably just bet him First Round Leader and go from there.
Apparently, yeah, he hits everything close and makes all the putts on Thursday, and then on the weekend the real putter kind of comes out to play.
I did notice going back and checking out some of the early round coverage of the past 2 years at Copperhead that I want to see if I can find the overall totals, because it stuck out to me. Round 2 last year, if I gave you some names to throw inside the top 5 on the second round leaderboard last year, just spitball me if you don't remember, of guys who could be in there.
Well, I remember that there was a day that Spieth, Hovland, all those guys, I think Xander as well, all kind of surged up the leaderboard, but I think that was Saturday, which leads me to believe that Friday was just a bunch of no names.
It wasn't a bunch of no names. It's a bunch of guys who did really well at PGA National this year. It was Echeverria, Ricky Castillo, Shane Lowry were all populated up there, and even Hitsetsune ended up there as well. Like Bridgman ended up WDing from PGA National, but as you may remember, last year he was T2 at PGA National. So I'm just going to start trying to mine some fun from that leaderboard and see what happens this week.
There's definitely overlap there. We talked about the approach signal at PGA National, and here at Innisbrook, we get a ton of approach signal as well. Also, less driving signal than usual at PGA National, less driving signal than usual in both aspects, both distance and accuracy here at the Copperhead course. So yeah, there's definitely overlap in the skill sets that are required by these golf courses.
And you said that there's a lot of putting signal here as well.
There is, yeah. There's a lot of putting signal. When you think of, the names who have done extremely well here, it should come as no surprise that there's a lot of putting signal, because it's Sam Burns, Taylor Moore, a lot of guys who really roll the rock well. And it also makes sense just from what you expect from the course standpoint, because this is one of the more difficult courses on tour. In order to make birdies here, you're probably gonna have to make 10 to 15 footers. You can't just hit it to tap ins all the time. And because it's as difficult as it is, you're also getting, those testy 6 footers to save par. So you just get more putts from the range that actually does have some predictive value. And it's not just about, who's draining 30 footers out there. It's who's making the putts that you really need to hit high quality putts to make at a consistent rate.
So, and this is also a unique setup because it has the 5 par 3s, yet it still has the full complement of 4 par 5s, but it has one of the lowest going for the green percentages on par 5s of any course on tour. It's right around 41% with the PGA Tour average, right around 60%. You can find all this information on the rabbit hole, by the way, betspertsgolf.com/Mayo. You saw me do the walkthrough. If you've never watched the research show, I have it screenshotted up there so you can watch me walk through it. So you can find all that information up there. That I think it's 2 of the par 5s are essentially 3-shot par 5s.
Yeah, and the fact that there are 5 par 3s also helps explain why the driving signal's down and approach signal's up, because that's an extra hole where the tee shot does not matter, and all that matters is what you do with your iron play. So I think it's really nice when the course fit model is very clear and easy to understand.
So I bet Brian Campbell at 2,000 to 1.
This is as good of a place for Brian Campbell, I think, as there is. The one thing I will say is it has seemed like he's done better on easy courses. Am I right? Or was there one late in the season last year that was a more difficult course?
He won John Deere, which Spieth has won both these tournaments in the past. Maybe that's a fake signal for me. And he won in Mexico. Yeah. But as long as he just doesn't hit it into the trees, and sometimes when he hits it into the trees, it bounces back out. I'm not going to play him on DraftKings, but I just thought 2,000 to 1 for a guy who won twice last year. And even to go look through his numbers, like he's been really bad, don't get me wrong. But his approach play has actually been pretty good. It's just his driving sucks, his chipping sucks, his putting sucks. So if you can like luck into a good putting week and he keeps hitting his approaches pretty well, maybe we got a chance, especially at a course that probably isn't going to penalize him for having no power.
Yeah, I'm actually very much in on him if he's still 2,000 to 1. That's way too high.
Yeah, you can get the 2,000 to 1 in the each way extra market at Bet365. So you get half the money on the 2,000, half the money on the top three at 1/5 the odds, which is what, 400 to 1 for a top three. You also can play him like the 10 place market, like 750 to 1 if you want to.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll go for the top three though, because when he's found himself in contention, he's gotten the job done.
Yeah, listen, I think every top 20 he's had on the PGA Tour, he's won. He might have 3 top 20s and 2 wins or something like that. So I just thought it was a hilarious number for a guy who, listen, does he have a, what is 1 in 2,000? Like 0.0001% chance of winning?
Well, so 1 in 100 would be a 1% chance. So 1 in 1,000 is 0.1. So this is 0.05.
So 0.05% chance. Based on his history, he wins more than that.
He sure does. Yeah, we've got him at 0.3% in our simulation. So that's actually quite a bit of value on 2001.
Yeah, most EV player in the field is Brian Campbell if you can get access to that 2,000 to 1 number. I just thought that was very funny to go through. So, like, what's the type of player you want to look at here? And even going back to PGA National, obviously Taylor Moore was on that PGA National leaderboard this year, former winner of this event. Keith Mitchell done very well at both the events. And although there's more bigger names at the top of this field, it does seem like you get those like random mid-tier guys who do pop in.
Yeah, you do. And again, like, not to, beat a dead horse, but the CrossFit model tells us that that's what's going to happen because there's less signal on the skill sets that typically, create the separation from the best players to the worst players in the field. And so guys in the middle of the pack, they just have to do a little bit less than they usually do to really get themselves kind of on that level playing field with the best guys in the field. So we should expect to see that. And I think it's going to happen once again this year.
The other thing to look at some of the previous champions, be it Victor a year ago, Paul Casey the year that he won, Sam Burns the first year he won. I'll even go back to when Charles Schwartzel ended up winning at this tournament. It's a lot of name brand players who are kind of struggling and people just don't want to bet. They end up winning here.
Yeah, we have definitely seen a history of that here, and I know you had a name that really kind of fits that bill this week.
It does. Well, now thinking about it, based on what you've explained, there's actually another guy who I think could kind of do the same thing. Well, Akshay just won, so it really can't be him because he even struck the hell out of the ball at the players. He just couldn't make that many putts. But Max Homa was the first one. I brought him up on the betting show. As you saw, he's dipped down to 75 to 1 in the market. I like him on DraftKings this week as well. He's a high variance player, but he's still making a ton of birdies.
He is, yeah. And man, did you see what Akshay did on the second hole on Sunday?
I did not know.
So he was my like number one core play for round 4 showdown, and he ended up doing quite well. He shot 2 under. He was a very solid play, but he was over the back left of the green in 2.
Oh no!
And left it there, then left it there again, then left it there again. Then hit it to 7 feet and made the putt for double bogey. And then, so he started birdie, double, birdie, birdie. And the double was when he was greenside in 2 on a par 5. Like it very easily could have been 4 under through 4 for him, but at least he battled it and gave us a good score.
That happened to me. It's funny that just reliving that. It's a vivid memory for me last year. I was playing a par 5 that's very hard to get to in 2, and I just hit a massive drive. And I had like a 6-iron in. I was like, all right, let's go. And I flew the green. It's just a giant green. Ended up making triple bogey.
It happens.
So-
But it shouldn't happen to PGA Tour guys the way that it happens to us.
Well, I really think that Sunday at the Players, the greens got so cement-like that it took guys a while to adjust to not so much the speed of them, but being able to control the spin on them. Because you saw even Cam Young and Straka for a while, and Fitz was doing it too. They weren't even really trying to hit spinny shots. They were just kind of landing it short and letting it roll up. Versus the guys that were attacking pins, it would go like skip, gone.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, like, I think the mistake that Akshay made when he was long of that green was not just saying immediately to himself, this is going to be an extremely difficult shot to pull off. I should try to hit this to 15 feet. And maybe I can make the 15-footer for birdie. Instead, he tried to hit a hero shot 3 straight times and tin cupped himself into a double. And actually, like, the final up and down was a really good one, but it would have been a lot better if he just hit that first one to the middle of the green and tried to make a putt.
So Max Homa fits that bill. The other he's not quite as name brand of a player, but he's a high skilled player. No one wants anything to do with him. But what he's been doing so far this year is kind of crushing at ball striking and putting the lights out as Rasmus Højgaard.
He's a really good putter. He really is. Actually, both Højgaards, I think that's an underrated skill for them both. I would also say, in terms of a guy who has not done well so far this year, who is still a good putter, and finally, like, the skill set that's been hurting him so far this year is driving, and now we get to a course that's less predictive. Ben Griffin maybe can find some of that form that he had last year here at Copperhead.
Ben Griffin's another guy who sank me in those PMAM lineups. He was like -3 after the first round. I was feeling really good.
He did the Shane Lowry where he was looking really good for a while. Lowry was 2 under, bogey free through 13 holes on Thursday and ended up teeing off at 4 over the next day. So it was not a fun finish to his round, and Ben Griffin was very similar.
Think you know ball? Prove it on Underdog and bet the bracket. Build a tourney bracket for free and see if you can outlast the rest for a shot at $100,000 in prizes. If you're a bracket bust, don't worry. You can turn your bets into real money all tourney long with prediction markets on Underdog. Available right now in most states like California, Texas, and Florida. Head to the Underdog app and put your bets to the test. With prediction markets, you can bet on money lines, spreads, and totals throughout the tournament, all in one place in real time. New markets drop every round from the opening tip to the final buzzer. So, if you love college hoops and think you know how each round will unfold, Underdog is where you make your bets. Download the Underdog app today and use promo code MAYO to get started. Prediction markets on Underdog, available in your state. Guys, you know what it's like when you start to get older. Working out, harder. The food that I used to eat doesn't keep me lean in the same way that it used to, and by the time the afternoon rolls around, my energy comes crashing down. That's not how we're supposed to be living in our 30s, and for me, very, very early 40s. Oftentimes, it's because many men suffer from low T levels. Doctors act like TRT is no big deal. Just weekly shots for the rest of your life. Then you dig deeper and realize what you're actually signing up for. Thousands of dollars to shut down your body's production forever. That's where Mars Men comes in. Mars Men gives you the same benefits of optimized testosterone, energy, strength, and focus without shutting your body down. No synthetics, no needles, no dependency. It's just like hitting the reset button on your hormone factory instead of shutting it down. Made in the USA and third-party tested. 90-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Worst case, you don't absolutely love it and you get your money back. But over 91% of users report higher energy levels. Thousands of guys are feeling incredible results. Just check out the reviews on the website to see for yourself. For a limited time, my listeners get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Let's jump over to DraftKings right now and try to build out some lineups. I threw in my first shell lineup, like my instant blink test of who do I like this week? So I have Spieth, Brooks, Homa, Hisetsune, Bud Colley, and Taylor Moore in a lineup. Do you think this is just because I would be good here fading Xander, Hovland, Akshay, Fitz, Justin Thomas. I don't, not that I will end up fading them, but I don't care about those guys as much because I started to look down this list and just it gets kind of thin once you get below $7,500.
It gets really thin. So yeah, I think the very first thing that I'll say about this lineup that I very much agree with is I like the idea of a balanced lineup this week where it's almost like the main focus of the lineup is making the weakest link as strong as it can possibly be. So it's not about getting all the best players. It's not even about getting your favorite plays in the lineup. It's about making sure that there's no one in your lineup that you really don't feel confident in.
So I can make this like a Rasmus Højgaard lineup pretty easily now that I've kind of talked myself into him. And he's another one who popped up. He ended up finishing T8 at I was going to say Fantasy National, at PGA National a few weeks back. Like I've bet Spieth, I've bet Brook, I have bet almost all of these guys. I bet Spieth, Brooks, Homa, and Heat Setsune. I think they're all really good plays this week. I did also bet Nikolai Højgaard, but maybe I just go Rasmus as well. Who knows?
Yeah, and there's another name kind of in the low eights, Wyndham Clark, that I don't know if we can quite put him in that like Homa camp where he's just better than what he's played, or at least it seems like he's better than how he's played. He did play pretty well at the Players, and interestingly, like the Players, the TPC Sawgrass is not a golf course that really fits him. So that's kind of something that I look for is when a guy has some decent results at courses that really don't fit them, and then they get to a course that does. The problem is I don't think Innisbrook really fits him super well either. So we don't get that type of a boost, but just in terms of like betting on talent that's underpriced in this field relative to what we've seen from their best over the last few years, I think Wyndham certainly belongs in that category.
What do you make of some of the players who, like Pearson Coody is obviously the biggest example of this, that started the year off super hot. Matt McCarty was another one who started the year off super hot. Feels like they kind of peaked and now they're going back down. Do we keep fading them or do we try to buy back early on the way back up? Because I'm good with just leaving Coody to the side this week, getting back on him next week in Houston.
I do think it makes sense to think about what the type of player each guy is. And so Coody, for example, he really benefited from the run of golf courses that really rewarded distance, really rewarded the combo of distance and accuracy. You got, the distance at Torrey Pines, and then you go to, and then there's Scottsdale, and then you get, both distance and accuracy. Genesis really rewards distance. And so Coody was really benefiting from just great course fit week after week after week, then gets to Sawgrass, not a good course fit anymore. And oops, he kind of stinks. And so now we get another course where driving isn't as predictive. I'm not going to be in on Coody. But there are some guys who maybe they started really hot. They didn't play well recently, but this is a good golf course for them. And so I'm kind of always in the camp of course fit above most other things. But I think it's especially true when you're thinking about, the trend of a player recently. It's not just how well has he played. It's can we contextualize his recent form with how well he has fit those courses and then how well he's fitting this course.
Can David Ford chip and putt enough to do something here?
That's the question every single week. I've been impressed with him. I'll say that. And it certainly looks now like there's a better chance that he's going to be able to figure out the around the green and putting before the ball striking goes away. Cause we're, with every single event that he continues to hit the ball well, we're becoming more and more confident in his ball striking. And we actually now have at least like some examples, one example of the putting and or chipping being pretty good in a week.
Do you put any stock into, obviously, if it's a positive example and it's someone that you want to take, it's like, oh, they had a really good week at the Players. Let me keep running this through. Does the Players actually tell us anything? Because, guys, once you get going bad, it can get really bad for, like, David Ford, for example. I think he was like 300 at one point, and just, you look at his numbers, oh, that's a lot of red on that card.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it right at the top there, where we should think of great performance at the Players with a little bit more like signal, if you will, than really bad performance. Because the thing about Sawgrass is you can just be a little bit off. And if you're a little bit off, it can really punish you over and over. And then once you're going poorly there, it seems like the most difficult course in the history of the world. Whereas in order to play well, you have to be on in basically every aspect of your game. And so anyone who played well at the Players, just number one, they just gained a lot of confidence. They're coming into this week feeling really good about all parts of their game. And number two, you can't fake your way around that place. Like there are times where someone is coming off a good performance and you dig deeper and it's like, man, they really didn't play that well. They got a couple good breaks. They made some really nice putts, but they didn't totally deserve the finish that they got. And then, that comes to fruition the next week and they don't play as well. But you can't fake your way around Sawgrass. So anyone who had a good finish there is likely actually in good form.
Do you think that there's any way that you had too good of a performance? Like with Fitz, and I know Fitz seemed pretty jovial even after he came in second place, made a great run on Sunday, but does he take a step back this week? Like that, there's a lot of emotion and physicality and just like you're drained coming off the Players' Championship and then going to Copperhead. Hell, Bobby Mack took the week off. He's like, yeah, I have enough of this for me. I'm a big man. I'm actually drained. But like Fitz... Hell, Xander. I guess Xander wasn't really in it because he had such a bad day on Saturday and then kind of rallied back. Obviously, he had the big rally on Sunday at this course as well. Like, is it unfair to punish guys that did too well, that were in the mix and using all of that energy?
Yeah, I think that is a little unfair. What I can say from an actual playing standpoint is I think one of the reasons why the Players' major championships, they can be so fatiguing, isn't necessarily about just being in the mix over the weekend and the stress that puts you in, although that is a real effect. It's also the fact that these guys probably spent a lot more time and energy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday leading into the event, prepping and making sure they were as prepared as possible for the week ahead. Whereas in typical weeks, they might take Monday off and then just do a very light session on Tuesday and then do their pro-am obligation on Wednesday and call it a day, things of that nature. So there's just so much more prep that goes into the week, and it makes the week a lot longer in that regard. But that also means that it doesn't affect somebody who was in contention on Sunday any more than it affects the guys who were just there for the weekend. Now, players who had the weekend off because they missed the cut, that actually can be a bit of a blessing in disguise for this week at least.
The best players in the field this season on strokes gained approach. Smotherman is number 1. Brooks is number 2. Akshay, Fitz, Marty Doe, number 3. Hovland, David Ford, Ryo Hitsatsune, Nikolai Højgaard, Xander Schauffele, Zach Blair in 4 weighted rounds. And then the guy who came T3 at this course last year, puts the lights out and has already won Riviera. It's Jacob Bridgman, who, when you think about the very top of the DraftKings pricing, it goes Schauffele, Hovland, Akshay, Fitz, Bridgman, but then you have Justin Thomas and Cantlay and Spieth just below him. Is he potentially going to get lost in this field? And frankly, he should probably be one of the higher owned guys.
There's definitely a chance that he's going to slip through the cracks. There's also a chance that he'll be projected well around the industry, and therefore he'll just get ownership that way. But I'm with you. If he's low owned, he's going to be a really solid play because his putting projection now is second in the field for us, only behind Denny McCarthy, and he might have our third highest putting projection in the world now, behind McCarthy and Burns. Harry Hall's in that mix. Cam Smith is in that mix, but he's way up there. He's a phenomenal putter, and now we're seeing the approach play climb. Like even last week, we were projecting him to lose strokes with the irons because, as well as he's hit his irons this year, he's coming from a really low baseline as of last year, and so this is the first time that he's gotten himself into a positive projection for us. And at this rate, I'm almost expecting it to go even higher as we go on the rest of the season.
Just after Bridgman's like Connors, Thigala, Rasmus Højgaard, Thorbjorn Olesen, Wyndham Clark, Cootie, Mac Meisner, who rated out. Mac Meisner rated out number 1 in the model that I tried to run, and so I threw my computer in the garbage.
He projects really well for us quite often, and I'm with you. It's like I don't totally trust it, but then I actually look at the data and say, okay, well, I suppose I should have known that the model wasn't making stuff up, and yeah, he does look like a better player than at least like how often he's contended, right? And because I think a lot of the time when we think about how good a player is, the thing that our mind goes to is how often have we seen this guy in contention on TV on a weekend, and he just hasn't been there that often. But then I also look at our volatility numbers, and okay, he's a really low volatility guy, and so he consistently rates out for us as like he's unlikely to win, but he has one of the better made cut projections in basically any field. And that's the case this week again.
Yeah, he's 15th tee to green this year, 20th in approach, 23rd in ball striking. Sucks on the greens. And that's the one thing that we're seeing from the top of this list. So the guys that actually rate out well in both, and maybe we can try to construct a lineup this way to try to find our guys that are both good on approach and good in putting, which you mentioned have the biggest signals so far this year. It's Akshay, who is third and third between approach and putting. That's by far the best in the field. Victor is 6th and 48th in putting. Nikolai is 9th and 11th. Xander is 10th and 34th. Bridgman is 12th and 1st. Thigala is 14th and 17th. Rasmus Højgaard is 15th and 24th. And then you're getting pretty... Patton Kazire is 20th and 6th. That's interesting, wouldn't it?
Did you mention Xander? Did I just miss his name?
No, I did mention Xander, yeah.
Okay. Because, yeah, I mean, his putter has not been very good. It was really frustrating this past week. I had Xander in both my my PMAM lineups, and he could have been 16, 18 under in the first 2 days. Like his ball striking, especially his iron play, was outstanding. I think it was Friday where he hit 14 of 14 fairways, and he was hitting the ball far on those days. Like he really could have won that golf tournament pretty easily if the putter was a little bit better. Now, he did make some bombs, and so like his strokes gained putting looks fine, but man, he missed so many putts that he really could have made and just didn't. And that's kind of been his story so far this year, but it certainly was his story last year. But I do think we're seeing some signs, like he was very good on the greens at Pebble, where his putter's getting a little bit closer to where it was in 2024, and the ball striking now seems like it is where it was in 2024. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see Xander just go on quite a run throughout the rest of the spring and summer.
This is probably the last time that we see him play before Augusta. It's probably the last time we see a lot of these guys play before Augusta, because we don't know if we're going to see Rory again. I'm guessing Scotty will be in the field next week. And then you'll get a few guys who, Minwoo will defend his title in Houston. All the bombers will play in Houston, and then more of like the shorter type players that are in the Masters field will end up playing Valero. That's just inevitably how it goes. But if we can get a Xander miscut this week, we might actually get a pretty decent number for him at Augusta.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on a miscut, but as long as he's not in contention, I think we'll get a good number.
Hey, listen, you say you don't think we're going to get a miscut. We talked about the Scotty 10-1 miscut. It almost happened.
It did. Yeah, it should have happened. That was that was pretty unlucky that it didn't, but what a call that would have been, because I only heard from a couple people on that conversation, but they were like, why were you guys talking about a Scotty miscut? That doesn't happen. And it very nearly did.
So the only other players in the field who rate out top 40 in approach and putting at the same time, Homa, Spieth, P. Raj, and David Lipsky are the only other ones. And Dan Brown, the Da Vinci Code guy, the author.
Yeah. I was very much in on Dan Brown at the start of the season. Haven't been super impressed with him, but at least this fit is very much there. I'd also say, like, I don't know what you think of these guys. The guys that I'm going to have the hardest time on this week are, so we talked about like approach and putting being the two kind of dominant skill sets here. What do you do with the guys who are great at one skill set and awful in the other, like Rico Hoey, for example?
Or Michael Brennan.
Yes.
I'm thinking about betting Brennan, if that tells you anything.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is not the place to bet Brennan, because
I agree, but you're not going to find a guy at 175-1 who just possesses the most repeatable skill set there is, that if he can just find it somewhere else, because there are going to be holes here that he gets access to and easier access to, even though it's not a full go driver course, that is going to make the course easier for him. Just like I keep saying, I think I might just end up betting him every week.
I don't have an argument against that strategy. The only thing I'd say is I wish he was at least close to as good with his irons as he is off the tee. And if that were the case, I'd be right there with you. But as of now, it's a dominant skill set off the tee. It's a little bit subpar with the irons, and the short game and the putting is basically like everything we hoped it wasn't, right? Like the thesis for Brennan coming into the season was he just has to not suck on and around the greens, and he's going to be in contention a lot. Well, it looks like he might suck on and around the greens. So the one thing we needed doesn't look like it's actually the case. But to your point, like there are very few players who are as good at any one thing as Brennan is off the tee. And even on a course where that's less predictive than usual, it's still a big advantage. It's always an advantage, and it's easier to have a spike week to mediocrity in short game and putting than it is in other stats.
Yeah, you just chip in twice, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, here we go. You just get lucky. Like just watching Victor chip the ball, he made and Thomas imploded coming down. I forgot Thomas was winning this tournament by 3 strokes with 4 holes to go last year.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Victor made every putt. Like he needed to get it up and down. It's like, oh no, he chipped it to 15 feet. And it's like, oh, he made the putt. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. That was that final round was a really good one. Actually, I felt like last year's Valspar was just in general a great tournament, and part of that was because we got some more difficult conditions over the weekend that allowed some of the players who are on the leaderboard to really go backwards.
They did, and it allowed all of the premier players that you consider to be the best in the field to really go ham with ball striking. Like Thomas had a great weekend. I think Thomas still shot 67 in the final round. He just imploded coming down the stretch. Victor had a great weekend. Spieth had a great weekend. Xander had a really good weekend. All the guys that you would have bet on before, I think even Fleetwood ended up charging up the board on Sunday as well. All the guys that you would have expected to do well all week did in the bad conditions on Sunday when everyone else went away.
That's a bit of a pattern here, I think, too, where like you look at the leaderboard on Thursday, you look at the leaderboard on Friday, and you say, "Wow, who are all these guys?" And then by Sunday, the cream has risen to the top, and it's all the guys that you kind of expected to be there. And I think that's again like just a product of the golf course where it's harder for these guys to separate, but the dominant skill sets end up winning out, and the guys who are really good in those skill sets, it's a lot easier for them to do it for 4 days than it is for some of the weaker players.
Best putters in the field, if that's what you're looking for to try to spike this week, and hopefully everything comes along with it. Bridgman, Pavon, Akshay, Vince Whaley, Chad Ramey, Carl Phillips, Crazy Carl being carried by his putter this year, Chris Ventura, Davis Riley, who I am most definitely betting his first round leader, Chandler Phillips, Matt McCarty, Nikolai Højgaard, Jordan Spieth, Lee Hodges, Matt Kuchar, Kevin Roy, Sahith. There's Lipsky. There's Bezadenhout again. Bezadenhout's irons have not been very good this year.
They haven't. He still projects pretty well with his irons. And then I'll add Grazerman and Denny McCarthy to that list as well.
Yeah, Grazerman's there. Patrick Rogers, S.H. Kim, Takumi Kanaya, Rasmus Højgaard. Ben Griffin is another one who's still putting pretty well. Even Eric Cole is putting pretty well right now. The chipping is really good. The approach is really good. He just can't putt. But I believe he ended up coming inside the top 10 at this tournament last year. And it wasn't a good year for Eric Cole a year ago.
I've got another name that's really gross down here is Andrew Putnam as well.
Putnam's putting has sucked this year.
Yeah. So this is one of the like focuses of our prediction model is like how much do we want to include from players in our different skill set projections, and putting especially is the one where you basically want a larger sample no matter what the recent sample says. But man, it is absolutely concerning just how bad Putnam's putter has been, because the other thing there is like it's difficult because it's not just this season where the putter has been bad. It's also, he was great at the RSM, but prior to that, he hadn't had a great putting week since the 3M last July. So it is a little bit more concerning. And one of the difficulties there is he played 4 events where he did not have shot link and didn't play well. And we are including those, and we're trying to like reverse engineer estimates for all the strokes gained categories in those events. But it very well could be that he was really bad in those events with the putter. And because long-term he's a good putter, we probably assumed that putting was one of the better things he did in those weeks. And so there is absolutely a chance that we are overestimating his putting projection for this week. And he is nowhere near a good enough player for me to object if you want to just totally ignore him in your player pool.
Well, his irons we see this like 3 times a year that the irons really do heat up. I would be more comfortable with him in like a first round leader context or a showdown context rather than a full, because one of these rounds if the putter, especially if the putter isn't going as well. This is the first year in his career he has not gained strokes putting on a per round basis, and he's like wildly in the minus. So if it did flip at some point, that wouldn't surprise me. But obviously he's not consistent with the flat stick right now, and the rest of his game just isn't good enough to hold on is the problem for me. That if he doesn't have that, what is he? It's like Denny. If Denny doesn't have his putter, what does he have?
Yeah, very good point. I love the call to use him in showdown instead of the main slate.
So let's try to build a lineup of these great approach and like still high-end putter guys. Because Brooks, I mean, I bet on Brooks. Just the ball striking has been too good for me, but obviously the putter hasn't been there. But he is someone I would take more of, although if you take the past 2 years, he has been like the shittiest putter in the world. But for whatever reason, I just feel like he's going to get it back eventually.
I think so too. Do you want to start there with Brooks?
No, I was going to say let's try to build a lineup of this style of player. So I had Bridgman and Akshay in right away for these approaches and putter type players because they're the best two in the field. Then it would be like Nikolai and Xander. Probably can't afford. Shockingly enough, all these guys are the really good players.
Yeah.
Rasmus
it's
would
going to
be
be hard to do this throughout an entire lineup because we're not going to find too many value guys, which I think is where we're going to run into that issue. We're like, okay, now that we're down in the 7Ks, we've got to find someone who's really good at one, and then hopefully he just doesn't suck in the other category, as opposed to being able to continue to find guys who are really good in both.
Jeremy Paul, pretty good in both. We can do that, and then we can throw Max Homa in. See how we're doing now. We got $8,100 left. Yeah,
Homa definitely fits this build. I think he's got to be like a focal point of this type of lineup.
Patrick Rogers would be someone, as my guy Zach Bauschu would be another one who could fit up here. Dan Brown, as I mentioned before, fits this mold a little bit. Nick Taylor could potentially get there. Patton Kazire at $6,200.
You know who fits this? Who he certainly hasn't played well this year, but he hasn't been terrible, and he did play well at the Players. Eric Cole.
Yeah, Eric Cole. Yeah, what is Eric Cole's number here? Eric Cole is 7,000. So we could actually increase that Jeremy Paul spot up to $7,300 if we had anyone to throw in around that price point. I was going to say John Perry, but that doesn't really make any sense. Mac Hughes kind of fits this build.
He kind of fits. When Wallace is hitting his irons well, he really fits it.
But he's not doing that right now.
No, he's not.
No, he's been really bad.
Yeah. Do we take a chance on Finau and just hope that the new putter actually is that important? Because we know he's one of the better iron players, certainly from this price range.
Yes, he had one good round at the Players. I feel like we really shouldn't overrate that.
I agree. It's not a comfortable click by any stretch of the imagination, but I kind of think we're out of comfortable clicks down here regardless. And so it might just be worth saying, hey, if this guy plays well, what are his chances of actually getting us a top 10 instead of just a top 40? And I do think Finau rates well in that kind of frame of mind.
Well, the other thing that we can do here is we can take Akshay down to Spieth, who also fits this irons and putting criteria. And that does get us Heatsat Sune, who I believe fits this mold as well. Let me see. Rio is, nope, he does not fit it because he cannot putt to save his life. T4 this course last year, though, which is always very encouraging
his
to see.
His putting has been a lot better this year, hasn't it?
It's been like middling. It's
really.
It's either been like, you know who is actually the ultimate. I mean, Theegala fits this mold, although I do not trust his driver at this course. But so the lineup would look like if you just take the punt, which I did with Jeremy Paul, Patton Kazire for the same price actually fits too. Bridgman, Spieth, Rasmus Højgaard, Homa, Theegala with Jake Paul, WWE champion.
Oh, yeah, that's fun.
A 5-1.
Yeah, I love the Theegala call as well, by the way. And I think the other thing you could do here is, like, let's say you didn't want the Jeremy Paul play. If you took him and Spieth out, what are we left with from a more balanced perspective? Like, if now, okay, so put Cole in now, yeah.
Cole gets you to like Keegan. Nick Taylor actually fits this mold too, of someone who can putt and hit his irons.
Yeah.
So that would be where you would end up. Although you could take Theegala up to Nikolai, who actually fits it a little bit better than Theegala does.
They're neck and neck for us. We've got Nikolai 0.02 strokes better in approach and Thigala 0.04 strokes better on the green. So
now compare their drivers.
Yeah, Nikolai's much better.
So if that's going to be the tiebreaker, give me the guy who's actually driving it pretty decently. Nikolai had a round, I think it was Saturday at the Players, where believe he made 1 birdie and 17 pars.
he was steady, that's for sure. Did play well on Sunday as well. I think he was 3 under, and yeah, he's just, as we've said, one of the guys that I think has the highest likelihood of really kind of showing that he's a better player than our current perception of him. And I know that his last 2 events weren't great, but honestly, like if finishing 24th and 27th at the API in the Players is him underwhelming now, I think that means he's a pretty solid player.
I would agree. I've been treating him like he's actually really good for the past 2 months. That's why I've bet him to very little success. I think he got me an each way cash at Phoenix, and he almost got there for me at PGA National. Not quite there, but almost there. He's been lurking. Like these are usually the guys that end up winning. Like you said that course fit is something that's very important to you. I would agree with you, but I think that we really do overlook how much recent form plays into when people win.
Yeah, or at least just how good the player is, right? Like a great player who's not a great fit for the course is still more likely to do well than a bad player who perfectly fits the course because it lines up with his skills and weaknesses. The better player is still the better player. And so in that regard, Nikolai's certainly underpriced at what is he, 8,900? So yeah, I think he's a really strong play this week and yet again, a pretty good bet.
Let's move to ownership and try to build from the top, because I think that's what, most people, they're like, hey, I want to play Hovland, I want to play Xander. How do we make those lineups work? And how do you pair them up? Do you see many people using 2+ 10K players? Like, will you see Xander Akshay, Hovland Akshay, Hovland Xander lineups?
I don't think we'll see many of them because I think there just aren't going to be enough cheap guys for people to feel confident about, to feel any conviction in. And so I do think a lot of the field is going to kind of take the approach that I talked about, where we're almost spending a little bit more focus on how strong can we make our weakest link, as opposed to just how can I possibly fit this combination of studs. And so in that regard, I don't think we'll see many 10Ks. I do think we'll see a lot of lineups that go more balanced and try to get as many of the like Fitzpatrick's, Cantlay, Spawn, Bridgman, Akshay, as they possibly can together, where again, like if that means that they have to choose all of the cheapest of those guys, that they will, because it makes the rest of the lineup just better and they feel good about all the guys up top.
So who would you guess is going to be the highest owned player of the top end?
I think Fitzpatrick, unless people have the same like concern that you asked about earlier, where did he do too well? Did he put himself in such a high stress situation that he's just not going to have the energy to now, show up and play well this week? As long as they don't have that fear, I think he'll be the highest owned guy.
Do you think that it could be Brooks?
I'd be very surprised if it was Brooks. He's just not going to project well enough around the industry. He's going to be one of the guys who's like the highest owned relative to his projection, but that's not going to take him to one of the more popular players.
The only other one I would throw out is people will look at the board. Like when you just the first thing you notice when you open it, Xander's almost $11,000. People will think about projections, course history, and what they just saw. And Justin Thomas is $9,500.
Yeah, I think I would be surprised if there's too much separation at the top. Like I think that's one of my main takeaways early is there's an argument for so many of these players, and at least in our projections, a lot of them project very close to one another. So it's going to be difficult for any one of these guys. Actually, like Xander might have the highest chance of being, 30 to 35% of any of these guys. But the chance that any of them just really separate well above and beyond the rest of the guys, I think is pretty low. And so that kind of gives us license to just play whoever our favorites are.
Could you be talked into a guy who has 3 top 10s in his past 4 starts on the PGA Tour?
It depends on the guy.
Zach Blair.
Oh God. No, I don't think I could be talked into Zach Blair.
I think that I can. I feel like I saw his name pop up at this turn. Yeah, he was top 10 here 2 years ago. I don't know how
he's a better fit here than most places because driving is so much less important than usual.
Let's try to build out the Xander lineup. You put in Xander. It's so weird not to have Scotty here. It's like, well, you put in Scotty, you got $7,000 left. You put in Xander, you got $7,800 left. So there's a lot of maneuvering you can do if you want to use it. You don't necessarily need to go down to the very bottom. Of these 7K guys, who would you expect to really pop out in ownership? I still think it's going to be Smotherman.
Yes. He was the first name I was going to say. I definitely think Smotherman will be popular. Playing well, and he's not just playing well. It's like he is an iron savant, and that's what everyone knows really matters here. And so I'd be shocked if anyone was even close to ownership that Smotherman's going to get to in the 7K range.
Who do you think would be next on that list? Would it be, I like Collie, I like Taylor Moore this week. Obviously, Meisner is going to project out really well. Or is it someone a bit cheaper so you can get back up? Like Glover has killed this course over the year. He's very good at this course.
Yeah.
Or is it like Tom Kim or Finau?
It could be. This is another range where outside of Smotherman, there's a decent argument for a lot of these guys. The difference between this range and the above range is there's also a decent argument against most of these guys. So I'm having trouble at the moment kind of figuring out who's second, who's third, who's fourth. And I think the answer is that it's probably going to be pretty bunched. I do think there's a chance that McCarty will be pretty high owned in this range.
Which is odd because people will see the 2 top 10s, the 7 of 9, and maybe it's a time to reinvest into Matt McCarty, but his game has just gone to shit recently.
It's all been putting. Like that's the only thing he's doing well. The advantage to that is this is a place where that actually matters. But I think the thing that will keep his ownership in check and will keep it from being anywhere close to Smotherman is that the approach play hasn't been good, and so you need one of the spikes now. It's not like it's been terrible all season. It was quite good at the Genesis. It was great at the Amex, at least in the 2 rounds with the ShotLink data. It was good at the Sony. So it's not like it's been this full pattern of his approach play stinks this season, but it's been very up and down, and it's been more down than up in his last 5 starts.
I wanted to take a look at Michael Kim's numbers because he had a very bad round 2 at the Players' Championship. But overall, like it seems like his ball striking is coming back a little bit. And I do like his short game. He just could not putt at Riv. He could not putt at Bay Hill. It got a little bit better at the Players. But he opened the year hot fire on the greens. And it seems like his swing is coming back. Versus Novak, versus some of these guys that are down here right now, I would try to think like, hey, who's a great iron/putter player when they're going well? Michael Kim would be that answer.
He would be. And he's one of those guys we talked about, like, okay, sometimes there's course fit that just it's such a bad fit that we can almost ignore the really bad performance. And I think that qualifies for Michael Kim at the Players because we get like a really unique window into Michael Kim's game. Number one, because of how often he talks to you. And then number two, because of how much he shares on Twitter. And I loved his breakdown of Sawgrass, especially in terms of like the way it demands that you shape shots differently, even within the same hole, so much more than other golf courses where there are holes where like, okay, it's clearly asking for a draw off the tee and then a cut into the green and then a cut off the tee and then a draw into the green. And Michael Kim just doesn't do that. When Michael Kim is at his best, it's draw after draw after draw. There's no decision-making going into each shot. It's automatic. I am starting this ball, 15 feet right of the flag, and I'm letting it fall to 5 feet right of the flag, and that's where I want it to finish. And he just can't do that around Sawgrass. He has to try and shape the ball. He even talked in his kind of breakdown ahead of time that, hey, if this place gets soft, that's going to be a really big advantage to me because it's going to make it less important that I actually hit some cuts, and I'll be able to just hit my draw all over the place. Well, even though we got some rain, it was still too firm for that. And so you got a guy who really doesn't like to hit anything but a draw on a course where he had to do so quite a bit. And so I'm not going to fault him at all for the fact that his approach play was really bad all week. Because again, like I didn't expect much from him knowing he had to hit some cuts into greens, or he just had no chance to hold a lot of those greens. And that's exactly what happened.
A lot of drawers have done well at this course in the past.
Hmm.
You got some Patrick Reed in your life. There's not a lot of primary drawers of the golf ball at this point in time. Bud Cauley had a really good run here a year ago. So you got Reed, you got Cauley. Vic hits a ton of draws too.
He does. Yeah. There are a lot of guys, and like this is just one of those places where it's not as important, right? You don't have to be able to shape the ball both directions. The one variable that would make it so that it's like really advantageous to be able to do so is if we got a lot of wind, because then anytime like you're in a crosswind, it's just significantly better to shape the ball into the wind. It just narrows the dispersion quite a bit. So in that scenario, it helps. But other than that, the golf course itself, like the design, the structure of the course doesn't demand it anywhere near the way Sawgrass does.
So let's go back to this lineup. Schauffele and Austin Smotherman are the first two in. Is this a spot where you would try to go to a Glover or a Eric Cole or a Finau and someone in the bottom sevens to get yourself back up to that mid-8 section?
Yes, I do think so, because to me that low 8 section is just pretty far ahead of anyone in the sevens. Like I'm very interested in Rasmus and Wyndham in particular, even Pendrith, and these guys are they don't totally fit what we're looking for, because obviously those guys would benefit from a course where distance is really rewarded, but the rest of their game it fits it like decently well, at least, where particularly the putting, all three of these guys, when they're putting well, are very good putters. Now Pendrith's putting, at least of late, has been really concerning, but like I said earlier, I'm much less concerned about recent form when it comes to putting than I am with like driving accuracy and approach play. So I still consider Pendrith to be a good putter, even though he hasn't been for the last month. And these guys also score really well, so I like them a lot more than anyone in the mid-7 range.
Can I sell you on AJ Ewert? Both as a play at $6,500, and if you go to coolbet.com right now, under the PME exclusives tab, you can get him as top Canadian at 17-1.
It's going to be a hard sell for me. It's going to be a hard sell, but he's flashed. He's got talent, at least.
Yeah, he does. And it all basically, like, he's a pretty good driver. Like, he's a neutral driver, and his two big skills are approach play and putting, which he has started to flash. He flashed it at Cognizant. He ended up coming T13. He flashed at the Farmers, weirdly enough, and came T49. That's just not a course where you would probably want him. He's not a huge driver, like distance-wise, but he's pretty accurate. He just had a terrible Players, and it's sinking all of his numbers. But the 3 weeks previous, T26, T13, T28, and shout out to Larry from at Tom and Marty's, did tell me he went to college in Florida. He played in the Copperhead Invitational twice, a second and a seventh. So he's very familiar with this course, if nothing else.
That's true. The downside is a second and a seventh is probably the equivalent of like 40th and a missed cut in a PGA Tour field.
Yeah, but he also wasn't of the same quality of players he is now.
That is very true as well.
I'm just trying to think of guys from the bottom of this list. Like, we had Jeremy Paul. He kind of rated out well. You could go with Michael Brennan. Michael Kim's sort of at the top. Just taking a look at these guys in the middle. Like, outside of Dave, you could go, like, would you rather go with Davis Riley, Jimmy Stanger, or AJ Ewert? Because I like Ewert.
I think I'd go Ewert there. If I had to pick someone from this range, though, I think it would be either Putnam or Hubbard.
Okay, I like Ewert better than those guys because I think that we might have seen untapped upside. And who was the last guy to win out of any of these guys? It was Ewert when he won Q School.
That's true.
So let's just throw it.
By the way, like that, to me, that is probably more impressive and more telling than the T13, for example, at the Cognizant, where he just putted the lights out. So the fact that he won Q School, I do think there's some real signal there. Like, this is a good player.
And he did putt the lights out. He also gained over 3 strokes on approach.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that what we're looking for?
It is.
So, well, let's chuck in Ewert right now into this line, because that leaves you with $8,400, and you can just pepper that range that we talked about. You said you like Wyndham Clark. I said I like Rasmus Højgaard, and that gets you back up to Brooks if you want him.
Yeah, or Corey Connors, or I think this is probably just our guy Nikolai again.
You could do Nikolai. You still have $200, which means you could upgrade Rasmus or Wyndham Clark. You could upgrade Wyndham Clark to Davis Thompson. Probably don't want to do that. You could upgrade Nikolai down up to Pendrith, or you could go Clark down to Clark for the same price as Homa if you wanted to.
Could also go from Smotherman to like Grazerman.
You could, but I wanted to build this out because I know a lot of people are going to start Xander and Smotherman and what these lineups would look like. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You could drop him to Glover if you wanted to and get yourself an extra $200. But the only guy I would really want to get up to, Keegan is very interesting here. He's been first round leader twice. Obviously, he went full Keegan at this course in the past. But I don't know. He's just been so bad this year outside of round 2 at the Players when his putter just went absolute scorched earth. If I was going to get back up to a range, as sad as this sounds, I do think that there's a drop-off between Hitsetsune and the rest of them. I think most people would say that there's a drop-off from JJ Spawn down. I just like the way that Rio's been playing this year.
He's been playing great. And I mean, he's been one of the guys who's consistently proven me wrong. And I think it's about time that I start to recognize the fact that, hey, you know what? He actually might just have improved this much as a player, whereas it's really hard to kind of buy into that early on. But this is now, what is it, 6 straight weeks of really solid golf. So yeah, I think Hisatsune is a pretty solid play.
So let's take those 4 out, go back to Schauffele and Smotherman. If we don't go scumming down to the $6,500 level, who do you think the cheapest player people will throw into lineups on a pretty consistent basis will be? Is it someone like Meisner, Niergaard Peterson? Is it a Seamus Power? Is it a Blades Brown?
Oh, that's an interesting one. What do you think the field's going to do with Sungjae here?
Pass.
I think so too. There is a chance that he's going to project very well in some places. Let me see what we have for him. He's projected okay in this range.
He's been at least with Tom. I mean, Thomas was bad at. So maybe he did gain on approach at the Players, which was, I guess, is encouraging to see. He gained in both rounds. He was really bad with the driver in round 2, very good in round 1. Couldn't chip or putt round 1. Maybe there is enough there. You can make, I can see how you can construct a case for Sungjae based on talent level, based on what Justin Thomas just did last week when no one gave him a chance to do anything. That at least I feel like there are more signs from what he did at the Players that maybe he's closer to being back to Sungjae than anything Thomas showed at Bay Hill.
Yeah. I don't think that a lot of lineups are going to go cheaper than this, I think plenty of lineups are going to go cheaper than this, but there's not going to be
the one guy.
There's not going to be anyone lower than where we have Smotherman that's going to get a ton of ownership. So one option is to build a lineup that actually makes Smotherman the cheapest guy. And so you can throw Meisner into there. You can throw McGreevy in there.
Well, do you okay of this Grazerman, Rogers, Colley, McGreevy, Taylor Moore, Christoph Reiten, Meisner, Penge, Jagger, Niergaard Peterson? Who do you think is the guy from there people will go to? Because I love Colley and I like Taylor Moore. They're my 2 favorites of these guys outside of Smotherman.
I think McGreevy, but they all are very similar. Maybe Taylor Moore just because of the history here, but and the fact that he's played a little bit better of late. But projections are definitely going to like McGreevy and Meisner more than Taylor Moore.
All right, so let's go with McGreevy. We'll throw him in. That gets us back to 8,000, which means you could go Rasmus Clark Homa if you wanted to. Do you think that's what people will do, or do they want to finagle it a bit where they can say, hey, I want Alex Smalley? I mean, Aaron Rye is just sitting here. I kind of forgot he was in the field.
If you put both Meisner and Colley into this lineup, does that get us back to it gets us back to something like 9K?
Yeah, 93. It gets you Spieth if you want it.
Yeah, I think that's probably the Fields move right there. And obviously that could be Brooks as well if they prefer, and Colley could be somebody else. But I think this is the style of lineup that we'll see more often, because out below that Meisner and McGreevy and Colley and Smotherman range, there just isn't anyone that the field's going to have conviction on.
Well, I got conviction on a few of these guys. So let's try to build a super high-end lineup here before we build a single entry and try to get it that way. How would you start? If you had to pick 2 guys from the top of this board, who would it be?
That we haven't done yet?
No, that we just anyone. Any one of the top 6 guys, 7 guys. We'll say from Cantlay up, let's pick 2 of them.
All right, let's go Fitz and Hovland this time.
Fitz and Hovland, and we can make this work pretty easily. We just said Bud Colley. So we can do the Colley, Meisner, McGreevy, and just go that way, which...
that would be really easy. We would just need one more guy in that range. And there are other guys in the range, as we talked about.
And Smotherman. There's the lineup right there. Hovland, Fitzpatrick, Colley, Moore, Meisner, and Smotherman Fitz. So I think that this is twice we've landed on this sort of build that I'm good with kind of saying that this is probably how a lot of people are going to build their lineups.
I think it will be. Yeah. Because again, like so much of especially single entry builds are about what people feel comfortable with. And the number one thing that makes people uncomfortable is a player that they think, oh God, this guy's not good. I do not want to be looking at this guy's name in my lineup. He's going to miss the cut. And I'm starting with like no chance of, a 6 for 6. The type of lineups that we just built is a lineup that people can look at and say, okay, this makes me comfortable. And that makes them click it.
So how can we mess around with this a little bit more? If we throw in Ewart or a $6,500 guy, that gets us back to $7,900 if we keep Bud Colley in. Let's say we take Bud Colley out and go to Lucas Glover at 72. Now we're at 8,000. We can go. So instead of going that like Smotherman, McGreevy type spot, we can just go back to this. We can go Fitz, Hovland, Glover, Ewart. That just needs to be a 72 and a 75. Those are the guys that I prefer. Mm-hmm. You might prefer someone different. The field might prefer someone different. I don't really care. But then it gets you back to Rasmus and Homa.
Yeah. And so the question there is like, how much better do you feel, Rasmus and Homa are to that group compared to how much better that initial group is to the Glover and Ewarts of the price range. And so again, like to me, I think that the field is typically going to say that this 4v4 is not worth it, but I could be wrong about that.
I would agree with you. I think you'll see far more of the first lineup. I like this lineup better.
I think I like this lineup better simply because I expect it to be a more contrarian route. And I actually think that like Homa, Højgaard, Wyndham, I do think that they're a big upgrade to the Bud Colleys and Smothermans. So for me, that's why this one's worth it. But I like, I will say, I think I like Kim and Blair more than Ewart and Glover.
You could do Kim and Blair. You could do Kim or Blair and David Ford if you wanted to, rather than Glover. You were like, there's different combos that you can play with this with guys that I like, or you can just finagle it that way. This might be the better version of that one we just built, but I like having, especially with Fitz and Hovland, I do like having the Højgaard Homa out here as well as two guys that I think can win this tournament.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's to me, like that's why they are a meaningful upgrade, is because you actually just improved your win equity by quite a bit.
Last thing we're going to do is build out a single entry or 3 max lineup and try to see if there's different ways that we can get different here. Strangely enough, I think that the move is actually back to the first lineup we made. I think that this is the style of lineup that I want.
Yes, I would agree with that, and I'd also say we just want to make sure that we're getting some contrarian separators throughout this, instead of just picking like all the popular guys. Not that this is all the popular guys here.
So the way that you can do this, the lineup right now, the first one that we built, in case you do not remember and you were not watching the video, you're listening to the audio podcast, is Spieth, Brooks, Hitsatsune, Homa with Colley and Taylor Moore. Now, we just put in some guys. I would be good with building a 5-1 here. And whether that's Ewart, whether it's Michael Kim, whether it's Zach Blair, David Ford, we just ran through a bunch of options of who it could be. Davis Riley is another one. That I think that is how I would want to play this. And it doesn't need to be Spieth and Brooks at the top either. Like, we can get up to Fitz. We can get up to Bridgman. In my mind, if we're going to build, like, if I threw away my personal bias of the guys that I really like this week, I would turn Spieth and Brooks into, watch this, into Bridgman and JJ Spawn. Now my lineup is super contrarian, and I've saved exactly this exact same amount of money.
I was going to say Bridgman and Thigala, but same concept here.
But if you think about, so I guess the difference to me, I mean, Spawn, who knows? I think he's just a gigantic wild card, but I don't think he's going to drive you out of a tournament where Thigala might. And if you just compare irons, Spawn's probably overall better. If you compare putting, it's probably pretty even, honestly.
I think you might be underselling how well Thigala's playing right now.
Okay. But do you think who do you think will be more popular, Spawn or Thigala?
I think it'll be Thagala by a little bit, but not by much. And that might change because Spawn did actually finally play well again this past week. Now it was, oh, you know what? It was a lot more of the approach play than I expected. I think it was his Saturday round that was like all putting, but the rest of the week his ball striking was quite good. So I think they might be close in ownership. And now Spawn is definitely the better long term player, but it's weird because so far this year, Thagala's been the better player. Last year, Spawn was by far the better player. But the prior year, Thagala showed us quite a bit. And so to me, like the start that Thagala has this year is made a lot more reliable by the fact that he was essentially this type of player 2 years ago. And last year was just this, extended slump. And so I'm pretty high on Thagala here. I think he's a pretty high probability play and no longer just someone that you're chasing upside with and also comes with this like huge downside risk. I think he's just a pretty solid play now.
Okay. Well, what if I told you we had $100 left over? I could just play Nikolai over both of them.
It's funny. I was going to go the opposite route and say, we're spending a lot of time talking about Thagala versus Spawn, and maybe the answer is just play them both. And then you went the route of let's play neither.
So you could actually do that, I believe, with the money that we have. So I think just by simply starting with Bridgman as your top player, that makes you pretty unique to begin with the build that you want to go with. Now, I've built a 1-9, 4-8, and a 6, and I use Zach Blair at the bottom with Nikolai Hitsatsune, Max Homa, and Rasmus Højgaard. I'm going to enter that lineup because I like that lineup. But to do what you just said is the move would be take out Hitsatsune, who I think Hitsatsune is going to be popular. I think he'll be probably one of the more popular of the guys in the 8s, and you just play Spawn and Thagala for exactly the same amount of money, and then no one has this lineup.
Yeah. I love this. I also think like you could also take out Bridgman, put in Nikolai again, and go like super balanced here. And now you take Blair into one of that.
Taylor Moore or Bud Cully.
There you go.
I mean, for me, it's Cully.
This is like even a lineup where you could pretty comfortably play the Smotherman chalk because the rest of your lineup is so different, both from the perspective of you have some contrarian guys, at least guys that right now we expect to be contrarian, but also because you know that no one's going to have this roster construction. And so that you can play whoever you want from that $7,500 range.
All right. Well, that'll be my single entry 3 max for the moment as we kind of continue to talk through what we like, what we don't like. I think that the conclusion of the conversation that we just had, now watch these 3 guys be at the top of the leaderboard because this is what happens when we start doing this stuff. I might not play any of the top 5 most expensive guys.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think for me, the big question is going to be how popular is Xander, because he, to me, has the widest range of outcomes up here where a lot of people might feel like they like the lineups that we just built a lot more than the Xander type of lineups. And so maybe Xander is going to be 15 to 20%, but then there's also a chance that he's going to be 35, 40% because he's very clearly the best player in this field. If he's the former, I'm going to play Xander. If he's the latter, I'm definitely not going to play Xander. If he's in between, it's going to be a tougher decision. So I don't know yet how I'm going to approach that, but the lineup that we just built and the types of lineups that you can find with that like hyper balanced type build, I do think those are going to look and feel a lot better than the rest.
All right. Well, you can build your lineups. A lot of people asked me last week about the T-splits and like how you can do that on the rabbit hole. There's a little T button that's there. Maybe I can bring it up on the screen. Dayton, let's try this out. All right. Bring this up on the screen right now. There we go. This button right here, show tee times. Once they're released, we're doing this before the tee time release, that they will populate there. So you'll know who's an AM tee time and who's a PM tee time. That just default turns it off because they're not listed yet. If you turn that on, they will be in there. You can save that in your settings and go through betspertsgolf.com/Mayo. Get yourself the discount over at the rabbit hole and you can generate your lineups that way. I just want to throw that tidbit in. Play in that NCAA bracket. It's free. The lineup, the link is down in the description. It's app only. So you can't do it from desktop. You can only build your bracket from the app, but it is free. Over $1,000 to the winner. Top 3 places play. And in the description, you can find Alex's Discord, which prints money. Buy it.
It's been fun. Hopefully people continue to have that same experience once they get in.
All right, let's have a better week at the Valspar than we did at the Players. I mean, I'm having a great run through Florida, although I basically lost all my money at the Players. Still up a ton during the Florida swing. I'm just good at this has been a constant theme over the course of DraftKings betting over the past 10 years for me. I'm really good at the non-signature and non-major events.
That's definitely the pattern that I've had throughout the last few years as well. Last year was a bit of an exception where I actually had some of my better weeks in those smaller field events, including the Tour Championship, which I had never like even sniffed a good week before, and then I had a nice takedown there. But yeah, I agree. I think there's an advantage to these fields because number one, we get more players who are course fit sensitive, whereas some of the better players in the world, they're kind of good at everything. And so when you go from one course that rewards this skill set more than this one, it doesn't really change the way they project. Whereas when you get into these weaker fields and these deeper fields, there are more players who are extremely sensitive to course fit. And therefore you can find guys who actually project really well and are low owned instead of like constantly having to kind of make a trade-off between probability of success and ownership. And that obviously leads to a higher advantage when you can get the best of both worlds, guys who project well at low ownership.
And I feel like for me that the amount of time I spend following, watching pays dividends in fields like this. And it gets me into trouble at major championships because I want to take these $6,200 guys that I know are good. It just, I have not rated their class of play versus the very best in the world. Where, again, AJ Ewart is a perfect example this week. I think he can hang with these guys, honestly. Like, there's a lot of good players here, but the whole field isn't stacked. He could pop here, where if you put him at, I mean, it's funny because I would have said the same thing about Yella Miraju last week, and I would not have expected him to come inside the top 10. And very rarely is that going to happen. But like when you get to the Masters, just I need to be able to cross these guys off my list and just not worry about it.
I had Yella Miraju on the Friday showdown. Yeah, Friday showdown. And he was like 0.3% owned. And it was the only bad round that he played all week. And it was also one of the best showdown days that I had. And so I would have had a takedown for sure if I got his Saturday or Sunday round instead of his Friday round, but that's how it goes sometimes. But kind of like I've been, my DraftKings season this year so far hasn't been what it was the previous 2 years, but I do feel like I'm circling things and around it. And I just haven't had everything break my way at once all at the same time. Like I've had some really good reads. I've had some really good calls on some low owned guys. And whenever I've had those separating type performances, I just haven't had the final piece to the lineup, like the Lowry failure this past week, to really kind of get over the hump for the big win.
I bet you Yella Miraju actually scored really well on Friday because I know that he rallied with a huge birdie streak to make the cut. Like he just played himself into a hole, but then battled back out of it.
Yeah, he scored okay, but I needed like just another 12 points to go from a min cash to winning a couple tickets and this and that. And basically, if he had a boring 2-under round, it would have been enough. And he did give me hope with that finish. It just wasn't quite enough.
I wonder what Zach Blair's odds are to win. He's actually he's only 225 to 1. I feel like he should be longer than that. They're actually rating him like he's not terrible.
Yeah, which makes me a little bit uninterested.
All right. Well, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Once again, smash the like, sub to the channel, and I'll be back with Keith Stewart midnight on Tuesday for the final word on the Valspar Championship. I'll see you then.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!